Hello, welcome to Security Methods and Practice CET 4884. This session will address the definition of information security and the history of computer security and how it evolved into information security. In addition, the session will go over the concepts of information security. As a concept, information security is the protection of information assets that use, store, or transmit information from risk through applications of policy, education, and technology. Basically, we are trying to protect the information of the organization through adding some kind of policies or training the employees or adding some kind of technologies to protect the information from being lost. Before we can begin analyzing the details of information security, it's necessary to review the history of computer security and information. It's important to understand how we got to this point and why are we doing that planning for the security and why it's important to do that. We need to understand the impact on our understanding of current information security. In the World War II, there was a need to crack the code that's being sent between the enemies and their alliance countries. Groups started to work on developing a computer that was able to break the code through several computations. Hence, there was a need to secure the country information based on that multiple level of security were implemented and more secured policies or rules were implemented. At the point of time, security mainly concentrated on physical controls, which limited the access to sensitive military locations or information to authorized personnel only. There was no application classification projects for computers or operating systems that is current and that has the same information that we have right now, or the same capabilities that we have right now, because the primary threats to security were mostly physical theft of equipment, was actually the physical break-in to that room and being able to get to that device or that machine and either make espionage or steal the information, or either physically break it or steal the information that has, so either espionage or sabotage. This is an earlier version of a German coding machine which is called Enigma. The Enigma machine is a cipher device developed and used during the World War II, early to mid 20th century to protect commercial, diplomatic, and military communication or information. It was used by the Germans during the World War II to send encrypted top secret messages between the different department, different alliance, or different partners in the war. The code for this machine was broken first by the Poles, and that was back in the 30s, and then by the British and Americans after that. In the 60s, the Department of Defense was exploring new methods of communication information between the different defense agencies. The Department of Defense Research Agency, named as Advanced Research Procurement Agency, or ARPA, began examining the feasibility of a redundant networked communication system designed to support the military's need to exchange information. How can I send the information between just those entities, just those agencies? One of the rising researchers was Larry Roberts, known as the founder of the Internet. Basically, he developed and introduced the basics of the Internet before. That inception after that was born and founded the actual internet that we have, or the connections that we have right now. In the 70s and 80s, the ARPANET grew in popularity and use, which created the potential for misuse of the system. Of course, when now it's very well known, you will see people trying to break in and get some information. In December of 1973, Robert Metcalfe indicated that there were fundamental problems in the ARPANET security. Individual remote users sites did not have sufficient controls and safeguards to protect data against unauthorized remote users. Yes, we can remote in, yes, we can get to the site, but how can we safeguard from unauthorized personnel? There was no safeguards, there was no rules or any kind of policies to do that. There was no procedures for a dial-up connection to the ARPANET. User identification and authorization to the system were non-existent. Phone numbers were widely distributed and openly publicized on the walls of restrooms and phone booths, giving hackers easy access to the ARPANET. Much of the focus for research on computer security centered on a system called MULTICS. And the MULTICS is a multiplexed information and computing service. In mid-1969, and not long after the restructuring of the MULTICS project, several of the key players created a new operating system called Unix. And while the MULTICS system had planned security with multiple security levels and passwords, the Unix system did not. So the best about MULTICS at that point, that it was designed with security measures, while the Unix was not. In the late 1970s, the microprocessor brought in a new age of computing capabilities and security threats as those microprocessors were networked. So the more advanced, the more we introduce in technology to the market or to the people, the more chance to be hacked in or to get into the system. With the existence of a new system, there was a need for policies, rules, and multiple controls to secure the network computers. It began with RAND report R609, sponsored by the Department of Defense, which attempted to define multiple controls and mechanisms. Those mechanisms were necessary for the protection of a multi-level computer system. The scope of computer security grew from physical security to include safety of the data itself, limiting of random and unauthorized access to that data, and involvement of personnel from multiple levels of the organization. So now you started to think more of how can I make some rules to protect the system. At this stage, the concept of computer security evolved into the more sophisticated system we will call information security. During those years, many articles being published about the importance of computer security and suggesting different methods that can be used to protect the network. Computer security and data security became the buzzwords where many agencies, institutions, and research labs concentrated their efforts. In the 90s, as networks of computers became more common, there was a need to connect the networks to each other, to communicate more with each other, and this gave rise to what we call the internet. The first appearance of a global network of networks something that can communicate all over the world. A network that can be connected in different places at different levels. The growth of the internet came at a costly price of threatening security as a low priority. With opening to the world, more risk, more threats, more vulnerabilities. And everybody at that point were treating security as their last priority. As the requirements for networked computers became the dominant styles of computing, the ability to physically secure the physical computer was lost, and the stored information became more exposed to security threats. From the year 2000 until today, the internet has brought millions of unsecured computer networks into communication with each other. It is very hard to secure each computer's stored information. When you have a computer connected to the network, you cannot just protect that computer information. The security of the stored information is now influenced by the security on each computer to which it's connected. Your security is or depends on the security of all the machines that are connected to the network that you are in. So you need to make sure that every machine is secured. And the growing attacks created the need to improve that kind of security. In general, security is the state of being secure, or in other words, to be free from danger. It means to be protected from hackers or predators who might harm the organization through accessing the organization information, or even to be protected from unintentional, from just mistakes or errors that's been done by people, by the employees themselves. A successful organization should have the following multiple layers of security in place for the protection of its operations. You need first to have physical security, which is to protect the physical items, objects, or areas of an organization from unauthorized access and misuse. And we'll talk about that in a separate chapter. But basically, we are saying lock the door on these machines or on the information. We need personal security to protect the individual or group of individuals who are authorized to access the organization and its operations. If someone at high level of authorization and they know a lot of information, we need to secure them to make sure that the information, no one can threaten them to get the information from them. And then we have operations security, which is to protect the details of a particular operation or series of activities. When you move the information from one place to another, when it's in transit, when there is communication, then we need to protect an organization communications, the media, the technology, and the content of those messages or these communications. And for the network security, the overall network, all these connected machines, to protect the network component, we need to make sure that the connection is secured and the content will be secured. Information security is the protection of information and its critical elements, including the systems and hardware that stores, that transmits those information. But to protect the information and its related systems from danger, tools such as policies, awareness, training, education, and technology is necessary to be used to make sure of that protection or that level of security. Notice that some of these security breaches are due to unintentional human errors. That's why we need to educate them or train those people in the organization, basically the employees, to make them aware of the results or the concepts or the consequences of a breach on the organization. The CIA is a triangle that has been considered through the industry. It's a standard for computer security since the development of the mainframe. They started considering that and they started using it. And that concept is solely based on three characteristics that describes the utility of information, which is confidentiality of the information, the integrity of the information that will be used, and the availability of this information. I want to make this information available for everybody, but at the same time, those information are confidential. So I need to ensure the integrity of this information to make sure that no one can play with them and alter them and change some of them. So this is a threat, and that's why we call it the CIA triangle. And it has been expanded into a list of critical characteristics of information to ensure the security of information within the organization. Actual information security is an integration of network security, computer and data security, and management system or systems that can manage information securely, adhering to policies and to rules. Some of the key terms that you will see over the course of this semester, you'll hear lots of concepts, lots of things, and you need to know them. So we have access, which is a subject of or an object ability to use, manipulate, modify, or affect another subject or object. The asset, the organization resource that is being protected, which is in most cases it's information. Currently with this age, information is the organization information are the most expensive assets for the organization. And another concept or key term is the attack, which is an act that is an intentional or unintentional attempt to cause damage or compromise to the information and or the system that support it. Control, safeguard, or countermeasure are called security mechanisms or policies or procedures that can successfully counterattack, reduce risk, resolve vulnerabilities, and otherwise improve the security within an organization. Exploit, another concept or term, is to make advantage of weaknesses or vulnerabilities in a system. Exposure, another key, is a single instant of being open to damage. Hack, another word that you will hear all the time. Hack, good, is to use computers or systems for enjoyment. Bad is to illegally gain access to computer or a system. Some people hack just for the fun of it, and those are we are saying that they are hacking for enjoyment. But others will hack to get information, to access information that is sensitive, and those are breaking the rules, so it's illegal, and they are gaining access to information that they should not get to. When we say the word object or the term object is a passive entity in the information system that receives or contains information. The word risk in information security is the probability that something can happen to the data or the information of the company. Security blueprint is the plan for implementation of new security measures in the organization. Security model is a collection of specific security rules that represents the implementation of a security policy. Security posture or security profile is a general label for the combination of all policies, procedures, technologies, and programs that make up the total security effort currently in place. Subject is an active entity that interacts with an information system and causes information to move through the system for a specific end purpose. Threats is a category of objects, persons, or other entities that represents a potential danger to an asset. Threat agent is a specific instant or component of a more general threat. And at last, the word vulnerability, which is we've been saying this word again and again, the vulnerabilities that the system will be exposed to or have. If a system has vulnerability means a weakness. So we need to make sure that those weaknesses, those vulnerabilities being identified and being protected through certain mechanism that will reduce the attacks or the damage of information. It's important to note that the same computer can be both the subject and object of an attack, especially in multi-user system. When a computer is a subject of an attack, it is used as an active tool to conduct the attack. When the computer is the object of an attack, then it's the entity being attacked. It depends on how much information you have on that system. I can either attack it because it has all the information that I need, and that at that point that's an object, and I can use it or utilize it to attack others, and at that point it's the subject that's been used for the attack. So the CIA, the triangle, addresses confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information. But what other critical characteristics of information that can be added? Of course, we said confidentiality is the quality or state of preventing disclosure or exposure to unauthorized individuals or systems. Confidential. We need to keep it confidential. And integrity is the quality or state of being whole, complete, and uncorrupted. The integrity of information is threatened when the information is exposed to corruption, damage, destruction, or other disruptions of its authentic state. Once we change the information to something that doesn't make sense, or it doesn't work with the other information, then now the information is corrupted, and that's why we need to keep the integrity of the information. And the availability, of course, you want the information to be available to everybody, so we need to do it without interference or obstructions, and it's required in a certain format. The information is said to be available to an authorized user when and where needed, and it's in the correct format. So you need to be in the correct format and available when needed. As we said, we can add more characteristics like accuracy, which is information free from mistakes or errors and having the value that the end user expects. If information contains a value different from the user's expectation due to the intentional or unintentional modification of its content, then it's no longer accurate, and that will create a problem with the information. Authenticity is the quality or state of being genuine or original rather than a production or fabrication. Information is authentic when it's the information that was originally created, placed, stored, or transferred. Utility is the quality or state of having value for some purpose or end. Information has value when it serves a particular purpose. This means that if information is available but not in a format meaningful to the end user, it's not useful for the user. The position is the quality or state of having ownership or control of some objects or items. Information is said to be in possession if one obtains it independent of format or other characteristics, while a breach of confidentiality always results in a breach of possession. A breach of possession does not always result in breach of confidentiality. This graphic illustrates the intersection of information states, the x-axis, and the key objectives of the CIA, which is the y-axis, and the three primary means to implement that, which is in this case policy, education, and technology. Excuse me. To fully understand the importance of information security, it's necessary to briefly review the elements of an information system. An information system is much more than just computer hardware. It's the entire set of software, hardware, data, people, networks, and procedures necessary to use information as a resource in the organization. Although we are to secure information, it's important to realize that it's impossible to obtain perfect security. Security is a process, not a goal. Security should be considered a balance between protection and availability. To achieve balance, the level of security must allow reasonable access, yet protect against threats. That's why when you set up your network, you provide different access levels for different people. Some will be admins, some will be able to review and edit, some might have the permission to read only, and they are not allowed to make any changes. This graphic intends to show the trade-offs between security and access. That will be all for this session. If you have any questions, please let me know, and have a great day.